The meeting of the Louisiana Tax Commission is hereby called to order. The meeting is being held at the offices of the Louisiana Tax Commission at 1051 North Third Street, Suite 225, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The date is Wednesday, September 18th, 2024. The time is 9 a.m. Please call the roll.
Chairman Rousseau,
Here.
Commissioner Leone,
Here.
Commissioner Romick, Commissioner Guidry,
Here.
Commissioner Frazier.
Here.
4 present and a quorum.
Being that we have no business, we will move on to the approval of minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes.
We'll approve the August 21st, 2024
We
open
had to go
meeting
find something
first.
to do.
Any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted. Can I get a motion to approve the August 21st rules and regulations rebuttal meetings? We have a motion and we accept the minutes from the rules and regulations rebuttal on August 24th. Any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted. Next item, consideration of change orders.
Shandrika Banks on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission. Today we have a total of 689 change orders. Staff has reviewed those change orders and requests to approve 653, placed 36 in pending status, and denied 0. Staff requests approval of these change orders.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve 653 change orders and place 36 in pending status for reasons given by staff.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Shandrika Banks on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission. Today we have a total of 28 prior pending change orders. Staff has reviewed those prior pending change orders and requests to approve all 28. Staff requests approval of the prior pending change orders.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve all 28 prior change orders.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Shandrika Banks on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission. Today we have a total of 11 tax sale cancellations in Caddo Parish. Staff has reviewed those tax sale cancellations and requests to approve all 11 due to improvements being removed.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the 11 tax sale cancellations.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion? Is there any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted. We'll move on to appeals.
If we testifying in any of the appeal hearings this morning, I'll go ahead and have you stand up at your desk, table, chair. I'll administer an oath. If you haven't done this before, I'll indicate to you individually to affirm the oath. Mr. Terry, you come on in. No problem. I think y'all done this before, but I'll administer an oath to everybody in the room. I'll indicate to you individually to affirm the oath. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Do, Gregory Miller from the Parish System. Thank you. David Mejia, I do. Matthew, I do. Thank you. Robert Terry, I do.
Thank you. Thank you. That's right, I didn't catch you. You swear or affirm the testimony you'll give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? We have appraisers today. Appraisers, if you will, turn your camera on and unmute. I'll administer an oath to you, have you affirm the oath individually. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Mike?
Mike Cater, I do.
Cody?
Cody Lowry, I do.
Mark?
Mark Gillespie, I do.
Josh?
Joshua Laverne, I do.
Sandy?
Sandy Kennedy, I do.
And Marquet?
Marquet Palmer, I do.
Paul, I'm sorry I didn't see you.
I was waiting.
Go ahead, Paul.
Paul Bennett, I do.
Thank you.
The first appeal we'll take up today is the appeal of Robert Terrio versus Assessor Wendy Thibodeau and the Lafourche Parish Board of Review, docket number 23-220-57002. Also, can everyone use this time to silence their cell phones? Thank you.
Before we get started with anything, we've received some communication from Mr. Terrio previously. We're all aware of the animosity with the assessor. We're all aware of the legal issues going on. We're aware of the failed election trial. Stick to your appeal today. That's what we're here to talk about today. If we deviate from it and it becomes a tirade about the assessor and what she's doing and she's not doing, I'm gonna call the meeting and call a vote. We want you to have every opportunity to explain your appeal, but we're here to talk about the appeal. This is not Facebook. This is not a social media rant. This is about the facts of the appeal. So I'm giving you a heads up how we're gonna run it. So you can go ahead.
All right, thank you. I'm here to preserve my right of record and reserve my right to appeal. We're at a bit of paradox here when I believe we are faced with a sort of a conundrum, if you will. We have a philosophical difference of opinion. Assessment values are calculated by utilizing mass appraisal techniques and tools, the use of many sales over a number of years. Appraised values are calculated by cherry picking very few sales over a very short time. When one appeals their valuation, the Louisiana Tax Commission resorts to the use of appraised value instead of a much broader mass appraisal technique and tools. This Louisiana Tax Commission practice results in an appellate more than likely not being treated equally to surrounding parcels amongst their neighbors. When I compare my assessment value to the surrounding neighbors, I'm 2 to 3 times higher in dollars per square foot. Other states allow one whom appeals their assessed value to simply pull comparisons of other assessed parcels in neighborhoods. No appraisal by state or owner is needed. If you must utilize Louisiana Tax Commission appraised value, then I feel one should only pay the lesser of the neighborhood's average assessed value versus the appraised value. Racial studies show that 75 to 95% of the low values on a lump-sided bell curve, sometimes as much as 95%, are below the point of equilibrium. Equilibrium is wherein the appraised value equals the assessed value. And I campaigned with this chart,
Okay,
bar chart.
stop. We're not gonna talk about what you campaigned on. We're gonna talk about your appeal.
This is
I'm
what,
not gonna warn you again. Nothing reference to the campaign for assessor. That assessor, you ran, you lost, it's over. Talk about your appeal.
this is the bar chart that I used for the assessed values in my neighborhood. This is the street that I live on, and it shows you it's basically a roller coaster. And that's what I'm appealing.
Assessor?
Assessor Wendy Thibodeau, Lafourche Parish. This is the same scenario. When Mr. Terrio came into the office and submitted an appeal, the tax commission went out and they did their own field appraisal on the property. They came back at 149,000, and with my calculations, I came up with 155,000, which is between the Louisiana Tax Commission's 90 to 110%. And that's where I'm at the 155, and the LTC appraiser came up at 149,000. All of that has been submitted, and you can see, in 2021, he did get a reduction because of Hurricane Ida, along with everybody else in the parish, according to the destruction and the devastation in that area. He received that deduction, and in 2022 it went back to 155, and that's where it remains for 2023 as well.
Questions from the commission?
Yes, I have one, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Wendy, can you clarify that the appraised value only went down in 21 and it stayed the same for 22 and 23?
Yes, it went down in 21 due to Hurricane Ida. And then in 22, just like all of the other residents and taxpayers in Lafourche Parish, their values went back up to what it was prior to Hurricane Ida. And his assessed value has not changed. I have stayed with the same assessed value as 22 and 23. The only reason why it went down to 21 is because of Hurricane Ida. If that wouldn't have happened, it would have been the same for 21 as well.
Thank you, Ms. Wendy.
Any other questions from the commission? Mr. Terry, you had some witnesses you wanted to present?
Not at this time.
No other questions? Do I hear a motion? Oh, I'm sorry, tax commission. I apologize, getting ahead of myself. Let's hear from the tax commission appraiser.
You want to sit here?
I appreciate it, Mr. Terrio. Thank you. Let's see. That's good, right? Patrick Matthew, Louisiana Tax Commission appraiser. I personally inspected the property at 414 Eagle Drive. This is a repeat appraisal. We've done this a few times in years past. I spoke to Mr. Terrio upon doing this appraiser. He informed me that nothing's really changed with the property since the previous appraisals. Three comparable sales are shown in my report, all in reasonable proximity to the subject property. They ranged in value after adjustments from 136,700 to 177,353, and a market value of $149,000 was reached. That's with a land value, undisputed land value of $20,000 and an improvement value of $129,000.
Questions for the LTC appraiser? Any questions for the taxpayer or the assessor? Hear none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to go with the LTC's appraisal. That'd be 20,000 on the land, 129,000 on the improvement, for a total of $149,000.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, please do a roll call vote.
I'm going to do a roll call vote. Commissioner Frazier,
Yes.
Chairman Roussel, Commissioner Guidry,
Yes.
Commissioner Leone.
Yes.
We have 3 yeses, 1 no.
Okay, motion passes. The value is set.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the next appeal.
All right, the next appeal we have is Thomas J. Magny versus Assessor Earl G. Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-76172. And commissioners, that is briefing sheet 23. 23.
Can you hear me now?
You can go ahead. Drew, is everybody sworn? Everybody sworn?
I just looked after, yes, sir.
Okay, you can go ahead.
Okay, I'm here for the appealing my assessment and the appraisal value of the house at 4419 Loyola in New Orleans. The house is currently in dilapidated state, and if the assessor and the appraiser, if both of them had done a field drive-by or field check, they would have seen that the house itself is in dilapidated state, that doesn't have any city services nor electric meter. Therefore, I don't understand how the assessment could jump 100%, doubling in value when it's in dilapidated state, since it's sustained severe damage from Ida, and it had damage from Katrina well before that. Okay, so as far as the appraised value, if the appraiser had made a walk around the house or field check, he would have seen that, and he would never have come in with the higher assessment or appraised value of the house itself. So I'm saying that both the assessment and the appraised value of the house is out of line, over over the top or excessive in both cases. My grandson, who is only 5 years old, in his eyes, he says, "Granddad, this house really needs a lot of work," okay? And, you know, with the professionals that they are, the assessor or the appraiser, they would have seen that, okay? And they would have came to the same conclusion, that the house needs a lot of work, that there's no way that the appraised value that they assess bears that out, okay? And the appraiser, the appraiser, we never came to that conclusion. If it's comparables that they make the comparison, then it should be in the same state of, the house should be in the same state as far as making comparables. If it's dilapidated, they should be making comparables with dilapidated properties, not something that's high price, renovated in extremely good shape. This house is in deplorable shape. And so I'm appealing the Orleans assessment. And of course, I'm saying that the appraised value should be ruled out or known void, because I don't think that's accurate. And, well, neither one is accurate, okay? So, I don't, it's mystifying as to how they could derive both those figures. So that's basically it.
Thank you. New Orleans Assessor's Office?
Good morning, David Mejia, Orleans Parish Assessor's Office. One of the things I noticed in reviewing this property, it's very large. We have it at over 5,000 square foot. Our original analysis was at 649,200. We had it in a little better condition than it probably is in. Upon appeal to the Board of Review, reduced the value to 584,200, which we did not appeal that. The independent analysis performed by the office came in at 580,500, and then the independent analysis from the tax commission came in at 575. So those ranges were pretty tight, and I think it's one of those properties where it's just so large. We do have it valued as fair condition now, which is fair as it's a step above poor, habitable, but and definitely in need of work. And I believe I'll get Mr. Miller's up right here. Yep, he's got comp number 3 is a fair comp, and then he made adjustments for comp 1 and 2 for average, which comp 2 looked like it needed a decent amount of work as well, which is probably borderline average to fair as well. So basically, I think it's just one of those, when you get the square footage being that high, it's the diminishing returns. It's hard to, it's at $100 a square foot, essentially 110, I believe. It's just a big property, is what I guess what I'm trying to say. So that's why the value is a little bit higher than what people would anticipate for a property of that condition.
Okay. Can we hear from Josh, LTC appraiser?
Yes, sir. Good morning, Joshua Laverne, LTC appraiser. I inspected and appraised the property at 4419 Loyola utilizing market and income approaches. The approaches produce values of 575,000 for market and 592 for income, with 315,000 underlying value for the land. And most weight was given to the market approach at 575,000. I would just like to touch on Mr. Magny stating we did do an exterior inspection, walk around the property, and deemed it to be in fair condition. But we did do an interior inspection, physical.
Yeah. Thank you, Josh.
You're welcome.
Questions from the commission?
I have one, Mr. Chairman. David, in looking back on what you had stated earlier, so you would not have a problem with the Parish Board of Review estimate at 584,200? Would that be something you could work with?
Yes, sir. All the values are pretty tight. Board of Reviews, 584, 200. We actually, offered to settle at 575, the tax commission value. But there was no response. And our value, our independent value is 580, 500. So all those values are within 5 to 10,000 of each other. They're pretty tight values all the way around. We would have no problem going with the lowest value, of the three.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we take the LTC staff appraisal at land at 315,000 and improvements at 260,000 and total comes to 575,000.
Okay, we have a motion. Any questions on the any question? Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Yeah, as far as the income, there's no income devised by, no, the house is not producing any income, okay? Excuse me, the value of the house, I stand by what I submitted, the photos, if y'all have the papers, the photos that I submitted, you can clearly see the dilapidated state of the house, okay? As far as the assessment, the appraisal is way out of line, okay?
Sir,
And-
sir, I'm gonna stop you. That is your opinion, which you're entitled to. The
Yes.
board, the commission reviewed the documents. We listened to it. We have made a ruling. If you don't agree with the ruling, you can appeal it to the Board of Tax Appeals. We're not gonna rehear with the argument. You disagree with the appraisal. We understand. We accepted the LTC appraisal value. That's what the value is set at.
Okay, well, I wasn't arguing. I was just stating that I stand by the photos that I submitted.
You're
the
perfectly within your
documentation
right, perfectly within your
condition of the
rights to
house.
support that, but the board has made a decision. We're going to move on.
Okay, so the next step is what, another appeal?
You can go to the Board of Tax Appeals if you disagree with the LTC value set.
And how do I do that?
Not for us to say. That's probably on the website that you can find out how exactly you do it. It's not our purview to do it.
Okay, I'm done? Yeah.
The next appeal we'll take up is the appeal of Rachel Marie Barnett versus Assessor Earl G. Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221777074.
Good morning. I just want to make sure we're all looking at my exhibits as I kind of walk through. I have an exhibit list, and I numbered it 1 through 14. The major, I understand the burden is on me to prove the Board of Review is not accurate, and there are 3 major components of my argument. The first is that the assessor has contradicting land values. The second is that my house is for sale currently, so we have a accurate reflection of the fair market value. And it's been for sale since June 2023. And then the third, my third point is that I am on a very unique street in New Orleans. It's pocketed. I'm considered the Marley Fontainebleau neighborhood, but literally the other side of my street, which is Colapissa, is Gerttown. And Gerttown, the values of the properties are very different from Marleyville Fontainebleau. So firstly, I would like to point to the New Orleans Board of Review and the assessor's valuation of the neighboring property, which shares a property line. This is property 7810. It's a duplex. So 7810 and 7812 literally share a property line. Our roof lines literally touch. Almost, I mean, okay, there's like 2 inches between our roof lines. The square footage, if you look at my exhibit, and excuse me, I'm a bit nervous. So if you look, I printed off of the New Orleans Assessor's website, 7 7, 8, 10s, land square footage, which is 3,720. If you compare that to mine, I'm exactly the same, 3,720. You'll see that the certified, land value for my neighbor with the exact same square footage with the, actually the assessor's market analysis, which they gave to us via email, says that there is a uniform price per square foot, and that's how they come up with land values. So my question, the burden being on me to prove that the New Orleans Board of Review is incorrect in their assessment. Firstly, we have this proof right here that the New Orleans Board of Review is not valuing neighboring land, exact same square footage at the same value. So like we're already off to a incorrect, contradicting valuation. So there's my first point. The second point is that my house has been for sale since June 2023. If anyone wants my house to be valued at the original $320,000 that the New Orleans Board of Review was saying that my home was valued for, it would be me. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And my house has sat on the market for almost a year now. I have what I gave to y'all in my exhibits, included the property listing history. And then it also included that I did go under contract in, I think it was August 2023. That person offered $245,000. Then they amended the offer, which is included in the exhibits, and they amended it for $235,000. And then they decided to pull out completely. So the New Orleans Board of Review, saying 320, then trying to settle with me for 245 is not reflective of my property value. And you can see that because somebody canceled their agreement with me for 235. And that was again in, I think they pulled out in like October of last year. And then so we have that. If we're trying to reach my actual fair market value, houses on the market, there's, if we're trying to prove that the assessor is, incorrect, we've got two land values that are the same exact square footage and valued at different prices. And then also going back to my point that I am in a very unique, I'm on a very unique street. It is called Colapissa. And my street is industrial. Literally the other side of the street is Gerttown. I'm in Marleyville, Fontainebleau, which sounds fancy. And there are like $500,000 homes in that neighborhood. But when you look in Gerttown, there's a lot of blight. There's new builds, but those new builds have a lot of room. My property, if you look at the exhibit where I'm showing an aerial view of the land, you can see my roof is basically one with the neighboring properties. You can also see that my home is more similar to Gerttown properties because my house is in between two houses, one of which I included a photo has 6 meters on it. It is essentially a 6-unit apartment, and I believe it's 8 units. But there's a lot of people living next door. It is not like the comparison that the New Orleans Board of Review used. They have in their market analysis, they used 2 properties that were in the Marleyville Fontainebleau neighborhood and one that was in Gerttown. The one in Gerttown is a single family. The 2 in Marleyville Fontainebleau, one of them is a duplex at $290,000. That's what they used in their valuation. I'm a single family home. So comparing me to a duplex that sold for $290,000 in the Marleyville Fountain neighborhood is not a proper comparison. And then the other unit which they used, and the LTC's assessor, the LTC assessment used 2 of the same houses that the New Orleans Board of Review used. The difference being the LTC recognized that my property is in this industrial block with a brick fence across, it's not brick, it's a concrete fence across the street. The LTC recognized that I'm next to an eightplex. I'm next to the property with the same land value as mine is a hoarder, dilapidated, like mess of a property that has lost me the ability to sell my house multiple occasions. So the LTC recognized that my particular block is one that is reflective of Girt Town. And so the LTC used comps that are in Girt Town, whereas the New Orleans Board of Review used one particular comp, which is on Pine Street, which is a single family home. It's on a corner lot. It's right across from a church, completely different environment. There's non-eightplex next to it. And then finally, the last thing that I want to point to, which goes back to my land value, is if you look at photos that both the and sorry, I keep saying LTC, the assessor on y'all's behalf, recognize that my lot is lower than street grade. And New Orleans street workers keep coming in and paving the street higher and higher. And when we get a brief rain, I have at least 1 to 2 inches of water sitting on my property. And then additionally, my piers need work. That's very expensive. They're brick. The mortar is deteriorating. I have some visible knob and tube. So I just ask the Louisiana Tax Commission to please recognize that I am in a very unique spot. What is this land value situation? New Orleans Board of Review, like what's going on? And then literally my house is on the market and it has not sold. I'm listed right now for 2,349.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make a point, though. The exhibits you talked about, we do not have.
Why not?
Because you submit them to the Board of Review. You didn't submit them to the LTC.
I have an email showing that I submitted them to the LTC. I sent them to Sharika.
Okay.
Sh-
I'll look up. We don't have it.
So what do? I sent, so how do I follow up the fact that I sent this information?
Let's hear from the New Orleans assessor. Let's see what happens, and then we'll figure out what we're going to do from here. We
Okay,
do not have the exhibits you referred to. You're welcome to discuss them. We do not have them in front of us to look at because they were not received by the LTC. I'm just stating that for the record. We're happy to talk about it, but we have no reference to look at it.
well, I guess you do have the photos that your assessor took.
Our appraiser took. I'm just making that for the point that we do not have the exhibits that you're referencing. So we heard what you said about it, which is fine. We just can't confirm because we have nothing to look at.
And I actually called, I also checked in with Jeff, who said that there were like, he acknowledged that y'all had my exhibits.
We don't. I'm not sure what happened. We'll dig into that after, but we do not have your exhibits. So let's hear from the New Orleans assessor.
Gregory Miller, Orleans Parish Assessor's Office. Looking at the property, we originally had the value at $320,600. Board of Review reduced the value to $301,000. We did an independent appraisal value of $250,000. In light of the listing and past listing history, which looks like currently, or there was at one point a contract for $245, as stated by the taxpayer, that was reduced to $235, and currently is now again listed for $234,900. The only difference we see with the appraisal from the Louisiana Tax Commission, the second two comparable sales, number 2 and 3, were from Girt Town, which, and I understand this property is on the borderline of North Fontainebleau and Girt Town. It is still in North Fontainebleau, and those two comparables were adjusted to a much lower value. Based on the current listing and the past contracted sale, we're willing to look at a value of $230,000, which would be a land value of $55,800 and an improvement value of $174,200.
Thank you. Hold on. We're going to hear from LTC appraiser.
Yes, sir. Mark Gillespie with the Tax Commission. I did appraise the property, the subject property, and spoke with the taxpayer. And all of the issues with the property that she stated are correct. I did an inspection of the property as well. I made an adjustment for its essentially, I think the main issue here is the external obsolescence with the neighboring properties. And in my report, if you'll look down on the design style location, I made adjustments for those issues, and utilizing the assessor's land value, determined the market value to be $200,000.
You wanted to add a comment, ma'am?
Um, I'm sorry, what was your name?
Greg Miller?
Greg, you mentioned that my land value should be 55,000. That does not address why the same square footage next door is. I'm sorry, you're not looking at the same square footage next door is land value is 29,800. So we take that land value of 29,800 and then my property value of 170,200, and then we get the 200,000 that Mr. Mark is, accurately suggesting.
Okay. Questions from the commission?
I just have one, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Rachel, I noticed you had mentioned, and I'm looking at some of the photos, you say that the property that's in question is on a commercial street?
On my side of the street, it's all houses.
Yeah.
On the other
That's what I'm
side of the
looking at.
street, it's businesses, which Mr. Mark has a photo of the other side of the street. There's a concrete wall. And then I also submitted photos, which y'all can't see, of on my block, the back of a restaurant butts up and there's literally a trash can where debris, like they just leave it like that. Like it is just an industrial block on one half. Not those storefronts aren't facing me, but it is the back of those storefronts, which are not kept in good condition.
Yeah, because that's what I'm looking at now, and I would just question it being a commercial street when it's the back of properties. I would consider that a commercial street, would you?
I consider it on what I'm saying is I guess I'm calling it industrial because there's the back of these businesses. There's a huge business trash can on the block and it's not a pleasant environment. And it's literally this dirty street, with a bunch of cars littered on it, trash, and then the back of these businesses, which are left pretty awfully.
That's what I'm looking at.
Like if you look so my property's on the right, to the left, there's all of that. And you see where that truck is right there? They leave that trash can just sitting out right there. My property is 1, 2, 3. It's the fourth one down right there. And then there's that big industrial, I'm calling, this commercial building, industrial building to the left is boarded up with plywood, the windows.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission? Hear none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion, and I'm going just off a couple of the comparables. We're going to average this out. So I'm proposing 55,800 for the land, an improvement value of 152,800. That's a total value of $208,600.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Thank you.
The next appeal we'll take up is the appeal of Carlotta T. Perez versus Assessor Errol G. Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221770031.
Morning. I can go ahead. Okay. Yes, I own a condo in the West End area. It's a 1-bedroom. I bought it in 2009. It has not had unfortunately, I have not been able to complete any renovations, any improvements. I actually have been living out of state for many years, and it was a second home for me because I'm originally from New Orleans. And I would come home for periods of time, and that's where I would stay in that condo. The unit itself has the original carpet that was in the unit in 2009 when I bought it. I have not been able to renovate yet the kitchen, which still has Formica type stick-on floor, particle board type cabinets, Formica countertops, original fixtures in the kitchen as far as the sink, the bathroom, again, no renovations, original tub. All of the fixtures are still the original fixtures. I do hope one day to be able to renovate it, but at this point, it has not had any improvements. In looking at comparison units, excuse me, that were used in the appraisal, many of them have renovated kitchens, bathrooms with granite countertops, with wood cabinets, hardwood floors or laminate floors. I just felt like those comparisons for the appraisal for my unit were not a fair comparison. I also went online to look at the current values of the properties used in that appraisal, and they were very similar. But mine, when I looked up mine, there was at least a $30,000 difference. The values that I looked up were around the mid 130s, 135, 136. But this came in at over 160. I think it was 164,000 is what it came in at under the appraisal. So I just felt like this is just not a fair comparison to the other units in my area. And because like I said, the unit I have not had the opportunity to make improvements to it.
Thank you. David?
Good morning. Once again, David Mejia, Orleans Parish Assessor's Office. In reviewing this property, we did realize that there was limited sales of average condition properties. I was in preparation for it. I ran some numbers and looking at sales. I found 13 sales back from 22 to 23. The average price is around 242.25, 237.04 was the median, which would be closer to our original value. The 140 value brought it to 206, which is lower than any sale I could find that averaged out. Our independent analysis landed at 167. The mutual comp between the tax commission and the Orleans Parish Appraisal's independent value sold for 160. It was in similar condition, average condition, similar square footage, one bed, one bath, 675 square foot. And that was really close to our independent number of 167. I believe we have some, I'm sorry, is that 167? That's right. 167, that's correct. So I think we have a little bit of movement, but I just couldn't land at the 140 just based off of what I was reviewing. I think that if it's not much of a reduction, but the 160 value seems to be near the average, nearer for the most recent sale, similar size, similar condition. That's kind of what we can hang our hat on it, which is at the bottom of typically of the sales prices that we find in that development.
Thank you. Can we hear from Mark, the LTC appraiser?
Yes, sir. Mark Gillespie with the Tax Commission. I appraised the property at 500 Lake Marina and used comparable sales that are within the structure, and two of them, as stated, were in a very good condition. The third sale was a mutual sale between the assessor and my report. I didn't want to hang my hat on that sale. I think a combination of all three is a good indicator of value, and my value was my overall market value was 140,000.
Thank you, Mark. Questions from the commission?
Yes, I have one for for Mr. David, Parish Assessor. David, did you guys by chance get a interior inspection of the property?
We did
to
not.
Look at,
Yeah, we did not get one. We do have it, classified as average, which is, below what's commonly seen in that development. Most sales in there are excellent to very good. So we do have it, rated below, what we commonly see in there.
Any other questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I have a motion to make the total sales price of $150,000, which would be $95,000 land, $140,500 on improvements.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Thank you.
The next appeal we'll take up is the appeal of Lawrence W. Pendergrass versus Assessor L.G. Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-72091.
Good morning. Which property we doing? I got two. Okay. All right. This house had any no renovations. A lot of it is original from the 1940s. Did you have pictures of? Orleans originally assessed it at 445,700. And Louisiana came in at 327, which is quite a difference. Like I said, the place hasn't been renovated. Those of you old enough to remember the honeymooners, some of the stuff looks like from the honeymooners. Basically, that's it, you know,
Okay.
it's just, I think they're way overpriced. They did offer me 375, but like I say, Louisiana, 327.
You'd be okay with the LTC appraised value?
I'm sorry.
You'd be okay with the LTC appraised value of 327?
Oh, yes.
David?
Good morning, once again, David Mejia, Orleans Parish Assessor's Office. I contacted Mr. Lawrence. I completed the independent value of this property. My analysis landed at 375,000, which was a little bit north of the independent tax commission value, but much lower than our original 445,700. In reviewing the documents, I realized that it's not a coincidence. The taxpayer had requested 375. That was the value that he had requested as a fair market value. And that's kind of where I landed. And I didn't back into it. I offered it to him and he kind of chuckled. It's like, I would prefer to go with the lower number. And so I was like, well, you requested that number. I'm just offering it to you because that is what you requested. He declined and we're here.
Okay, thank you, David. Can we hear from Mark A., the LTC appraiser?
Good morning. I appraised the property at 327,000 with an improvement value of 240,000 and a land value of 87,000. I did have some opinions of the comparables that they used, if you would like to hear those.
Thank you. Questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to accept the Orleans Parish assessed value of 87,000 for the land, 288,000 for the improvement, for a total of 375,000.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Okay.
It's 375.
Okay, next we have, Mr. Lawrence Pendergrass, docket number 2322177054, and this is for 318 Lake Marina, and is 6, briefing sheet 6.
All right,
Thank you. Go ahead.
and this is a condo, 77 units, was originally, rental, and they turned it into condo in 81. Mine, the one directly below me, same size, has been renovated since mine was. Mine hadn't been renovated since before Katrina. But, it sold in March of 23 for 135,000. And that condo and mine, New Orleans came out with 191 something on both of them. Just a few months later, after this person only got 135. The condo fees are out of sight. It's a wooden building. It's constant, flat roofs and constant repairs. My condo fee is $595 a month. If I had a mortgage on it, I'd be losing money, Anyway, it looks like New Orleans came back with 167. And Louisiana tax came out with 150. And you have to be happy with the 150.
David,
And,
I'm waiting for the first one who tells me they won't be happy with the lower one.
David looks at
Good morning, David Mejia, Orleans Parish Assessor's Office. It's not a lot of difference between here, and just in a sign of good faith, I'll be willing to offer the 150 as a consent agreement, if that would please the commission, if the taxpayer is willing to do that.
That would please the commission very much, David.
Yes, it would. I will go with the LCT staff
Okay.
appraisal with land at 26,600, improvements at 123,400. Total comes to 150.
And we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted. Mark, you did a great job on that one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have the appeal of Meyer H. Gertler versus Assessor Earl G. Williams and the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 2322177017.
Yeah, that's all right. You will find.
You can go ahead and get started, sir.
All right, thank you. This appeal has to do with our condo and condo building in New Orleans, where there are 44 units in the building. And there is a variation in terms of the condition of the units, but initially, when the assessor assessed my unit, he assessed it based on the exterior observation of the building and found that the exterior observation was very impressive, very good, which I don't quarrel with. What I quarrel with is that at no time has he or his appraiser ever contacted me about the interior condition of our unit. This was originally built 22 years ago. We've never been able to update it. We've never been able to renovate it, and it is in the same condition as it was 22 years ago. The comparables that the assessor used to come up with the value on our unit were all in excellent condition, as described by the assessor and the appraiser who ultimately did an appraisal for the assessor. And I said, well, I don't think that is a fair comparison because there has never been a sale in the building for a unit in average condition. It's always been, you have to get it in excellent condition, and therefore you can use that as a comparable. And as I said, there's never been a sale of an average condition. I think Mr. Gillespie, when he did his appraisal, he recognized it was an average condition. And that's the first time anyone ever recognized that our unit was different from the other units that they used as comparables. And I accepted Mr. Gillespie's evaluation based on that. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. I was just complimenting Mr. Gillespie. That's right. Okay. So in any event, after Mr. Gillespie made his evaluation, his appraisal, I got notice from the assessor that they were going to have someone, Miss Cassidy, I believe, do an appraisal on my unit. Miss Cassidy did recognize it was average, not in excellent condition, but she did a different adjustment. Mr. Gillespie made an adjustment of $260,000 because of the condition. She made an adjustment of $31,000, which was significantly different. And I suspect, and I don't know Miss Cassidy. I don't want to say anything negative about her, but it just so happened that her numbers came up to the exact amount the assessor had originally assessed the building for. And that's why she put $31,000 as opposed to what Mr. Gillespie had put $260, which I think was as close as we could get. It was more than I wanted the assessment to be, but I think it was fair and accurate. I had spoken once or twice to Mr. Gillespie. I submitted photographs. I did anything that they wanted to do to inspect or whatever. They were welcome. The city appraiser, Ms. Cassidy, never called me, never asked for anything, never inspected, never talked to me. And I didn't know how she could, make a fair appraisal without at least making some effort to understand what the condition of the unit was, particularly in comparison to the comparables that were used to raise my assessment so significantly, about 40%, over my prior years. So I respectfully hope and pray that we'll be able to make the correct adjustment in accordance with Mr. Gillespie's appraisal.
Okay, so for the record, you're willing to accept the LTC staff appraisal of $1,080,000 total?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay, just wanted to clarify for the record. David?
Good morning once again, David Mejia, Orleans Parish Assessor's Office. Our original analysis landed this value at $1,242,300, which was affirmed by the Board of Review. Ms. Cassidy's independent analysis actually was a little bit north of that at $1,283,000. In looking at the sales and reviewing this, 232 Lake Marina has a longer retention period. There was limited sales, and page 5 of the independent analysis completed by Ms. Cassidy, she shows the number of sales that dating back to 2020, and I can just read them off to you. It's 408, 439 a square, 393, 383, 522, 440, 615, 954, 719. They're pretty big numbers, and we do realize that the property is in average condition. We did value it in average. The independent number it lands at 370, 361, which is lower than any price per square foot that's sold in there in recent history. Mr. Gillespie's appraisal was, he used some comps from the adjacent development, and we just felt that 232 Lake Marina commands a different price point, and we kind of demonstrated that in our page 5. We have taken we do have it valued as average. I looked at it, and just based off of what I see, which was limited sales, so I could go off of historic sales, and knocking it down for condition, I was kind of landing at our original number at the $1,242,000. It's a tough one because there is limited sales in there, but the historical sales show that this is commands a higher price per square foot than adjacent developments.
Thank you, David. Can we hear from Mark, LTC
Yes.
tax appraiser?
Yes, sir. Mark Gillespie with the Tax Commission. I appraised the property at 232 Lake Marina. And I used 3 comparables that were in close proximity, sale 1 being within the structure. And in fact, after adjustments to sale 1, I considered it to be the best available comparable to value the property, and I landed at $1,080,000.
Questions from the commission?
I have one, Mr. Chairman. This is for David. David, so my understanding is, and help me understand this, I'm listening to the taxpayer, and he said that there was no one actually went to the property or went out to the property. Am I correct in hearing that?
We typically do the exterior only visits unless we're invited in, but we did value it as average. So we did knock it down in condition based off of taxpayers' representations. So we do not have it valued as excellent or very good. So we did make that concession that it's below the typical property condition in that development.
Thank you, David.
Any additional questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion, and I'm just going with the average of the common comp between the two. So I'm looking at a land value of 31,500 with an improvement value of $1,143,500 for a total of $1,175,000.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Next, we have the appeal of Jeffrey R. Brazzi versus Assessor L.G. Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-72035.
Do them first.
Hearing no taxpayer, will hear from New Orleans Assessor's Office.
This property is valued at $6,500. Our Q4 perennial value is confirmed by the all subsequent analysis. Once that already finished out of the two of the value said
Thank you, David. Can we hear from the LTC appraiser, Patrick?
Patrick Matthew, Louisiana Tax Commission appraiser, on behalf of Daniel Blanchard. Mr. Blanchard did an appraisal at 925 North Fillery Street. He utilized the comparable sales approach for land value and arrived at 91,400 for the land. He used also the market approach, whole property market approach, and arrived at $660,000 for a total value of $660,000, land value of $91,400, improvement value of $568,600.
Thank you. Questions from the commission? And do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, call for a motion to accept the assessor's offer of $91,400 for land improvements, $515,100, a total of $606,500.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Big fingers.
Next, we'll take up the appeal of L. Lambert, G. Williams, and the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23-221-77087-31.
Lawrence L. Lambert. Hello, commissioners. Good morning. Okay, start with exhibit 1. I had submitted all kind of pictures to the review, and of course, they didn't, we couldn't recover those. I did a CMA, gave them all of that, and after a few certain days go by, you can't retrieve it and make another copy, but that came out that they valued it at $323,945. The house has been vacant for over 10 years, and we submitted comps and everything to the review board. The house had damage from Ida, and Louisiana citizens, as we all know, are tough to deal with, still going through it. I have a question as to how they arrived at the land value, because this particular house was, the 2 lots were re-subdivided into 4. The entire boundary of this is surrounded by Lake Marina Towers parking lot. Horns go off at night, the swimming pool's right there, and this is the smallest lot on the street. And when we get to the survey, we have a common cross servitude to get out of there. So all this hurts the value of the property. And I think it should be the $323,945. While we're on this page, if you notice, the city uses $115,200, and the Board of Review came up with that same number. I was told by somebody else that had a problem that they take, and this may be something to look at. They look at a subdivision and they come up with a square foot per square foot, but you don't get any adjustment for somebody cutting it into 4 lots. And it's so small, the lot, it barely meets building minimum. The point is, as you well know, you guys look at A plus B equals C, and C is the value. But you got a little kicker on this A, that they don't change the price per square foot or modify it in the appraisals, but because it's like trying to move a mountain. But the problem is there, and I've got Ida damage, and well, I'll keep going. I'm on exhibit 2 that I filled out on the Orleans Review, and I put the value of the lot at 100,000. If they ain't not going to change that, then they need to modify the building, reduce the building. The property's only worth 323, and if somebody comes along with that, I'll sell it. And I can't get the improvements from the Louisiana citizens, so I'm really looking for somebody that's going to repair the house and do it like they want. And they may leave it like it is because they can buy it cheap, 323. I reiterate just about what I said here in Exhibit 5. Exhibit 6 is the survey. And it's a back lot
only 40, 40 feet up here, 80 feet here, 54 feet here. Then you got to come down a common driveway with a cross servitude. A lot of noise out of Lake Marina Tower affects all of this. Exhibit 7 is a water bill from last year, and it shows very little water usage. The house is vacant. Exhibit 8 is the assessment for 24. He went up almost 34,000, and I want to sell the house, and then whatever I can get for it, they can tax it like they want. But I think that's a big jump, and with nothing happening, I'm still stuck with the IDA repairs. Number 9 exhibit is the review board. Again, they stick with this 115 on the square footage, which I think is unfair. And they made a reduction, but not enough. This is for 23, I guess it is. I paid almost $5,600. House is vacant for over 10 years. I've been paying all the taxes. The pictures here are from Louisiana Citizens guy. And the big problem is they had eaves, and it blew the insulation out and shot water in the roof, and it came down the walls. And, you know, somebody might say, I can live with that, you know, or something. And I'd like to sell the house, but I don't want to be taxed to death until I do. But the walls here are showing damage, and the pictures show how you can see water damage. When you get to 23, you can see daylight in the roof there where all the insulation and everything blew out, and it drowned everything in the roof. 24, it cracked this window, and 25 really shows you where the water got in, and it's still like that today. Again, on 26, you can see insulation blown all over the place. 27, you can see bubbles in the wall, and same with 28, showing water damage. 29 shows, you can see when the water gets in the wall, it starts causing the where it comes out. You can see it, and you see kind of a big bubble on 30 in the ceiling. So got to take all the ceiling down to fix that. 30 again shows a lot of water in the walls. 31 again, you can see water damage in the walls. There was some cracked mirrors in there. Somebody might say, I'll live with that, reduce the price. There's those little dots or blue tape on the wall showing a bubble. Or on number 35, that ceiling is a pretty nice carpentry work in there, but to fix that is going to cost a pretty good hunk of change. You can, on 36, you can, on the top picture, that's a wall at Lake Marina. So the back lot has cement wall up 10 or 12 feet, doesn't help the property. And then I had a roofing guy come out, but they argued with me on the roof and blah, blah, blah. So I would like to ask either the Louisiana appraiser to tell me how come they can't make an adjustment for the square footage for the negatives that this small lot, noise, common servitude to get in and out of there. I mean, I had trouble with the neighbor, but he moved, but he actually came in, parked his truck and went fishing for the weekend, couldn't get out. But present one cooperates. So basically, that's it. I think that my value should be 323,945.
Okay, thank you. Greg, City of New Orleans?
Greg Miller, Orleans Parish Assessor's Office. Originally, it looks like we had this property valued at 431,800. Board review reduced the value based on the exhibits that were presented by the taxpayer to 415. It looks like the property was listed in 2021 prior to Hurricane Ida for 465,000, listed as renovated in excellent condition. We do recognize by the photographs and exhibits that were presented that there was damage during Hurricane Ida. This was considered in the value from the Board of Review. And the only contention with the Louisiana Tax Commission's appraisal is all of their comparable sales were listed as in excellent condition. And the adjustment for the difference of almost $200,000 across the board for each sale seems to be extremely high and kind of questions whether or not those comparable sales are truly comparable. If you have to make adjustments that high across the board, it seems like it would have been almost better to go farther away and find something more similar in average to support that adjustment, which wasn't done. Based on the information that we had from the previous listing, the condition, with consideration for the exhibits that were provided to the Board of Review, we're asking to uphold the value of 415,000.
Okay, thank you. Let's hear from Mark, the LTC appraiser.
Mark Gillespie with the Tax Commission. I did appraise the property at 269 West Robert E. Lee, and I did make an appropriate adjustment for what the taxpayer was regarding the setback off-street egress servitude. Made an adjustment for all three. The comparables that I used were the closest available and the best available for this appraisal. Unfortunately, they are in excellent condition. I think that shows the market trend there. Those properties usually sell in excellent condition. The subject, as we know, is in fair condition. The adjustments made to the comparables are certainly in line with correct appraisal practices. Also made adjustments for other amenities, and I determined the overall value to be $345,000.
Thank you, Mark. Questions from the commission?
Would he answer the question about why the users don't do any modification of the value of the land because of negatives? Small lot,
Yeah,
You want to
noise.
make an answer to that, and it kind of regards the adjustment made for the difference in the lot value. The Louisiana Tax Commission appraiser did a land appraisal on the property and came up with a value of $115,200 as well. And to show that and show an adjustment for the difference in location kind of doesn't correlate. They show the value is that for the land, but then make an adjustment saying it's not equal to the other ones.
If I may respond to that, please.
Go ahead, Mark.
The overall land value in that area is accurate in my appraisal. This particular property has an issue. It's set back off the street with an ingress and egress servitude issue as stated by the taxpayer. The comparable sales that I use are all typical residential with normal ingress and egress. The adjustment I made was warranted. So I stand by my number of 345,000. It's very accurate.
Thank you, Mark. Questions from the,
Mr. Chair, I call a motion to accept the LTC staff appraisal of 115,200 for land, 229,800 improvements, total of 345,000.
okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Thank you.
Next, we have the appeal of Mary Taylor versus Assessor Earl G. Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-72046.
David, before we get started, I want to know how Russell dodged this long agenda today.
We started our board of review, 2025 hearing, so he's, trapped over there.
Okay. You can go ahead, Dave.
Ms. Banks, it's, 2046, St. Peter?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a, 911 St. Peter, unit number 6. Our value landed at 285 for the quadrennial. Our independent value landed at 286,900. The tax commission independent analysis landed at 205. And preparing for this hearing, I noticed that, we had a value, a sale price, I'm sorry, in June of 21 for 285. I don't like the optics of us being at 100% of sale price, so I looked into that. And believe it or not, our value, when I was looking at it, indicated it would probably be on the low end at 285. However, I just don't like the optics of us looking like we put it at 100% of the sale price, which wasn't what happened. The analysis landed it there. So I made a slight adjustment, just and a benefit compromise. I'll give you those numbers here. So I was coming up with a total value of 275, which would put the land at 20,800, the building at 254,200, for a total value of 275. Just being for that sale of 285, we feel that that's the value. Like I said, I actually was landing a little bit north of that in my independent value. So 275 is more as a concession just for the taxpayer and just for the optics of it, not to appear as we were putting it on for 100% of the sale price. It just doesn't look good.
Okay. Thank you, David. Patrick?
Patrick Matthew on behalf of Daniel Blanchard. Mr. Blanchard appraised the condo at 911 St. Peter, number 6. He did a market analysis, market approach, a whole property, right at $205,000. Of note, one thing I just would like to note in Mr. Blanchard's appraisal, I noticed he also, if you look in his comps, made an adjustment for the floor that the comps are on. I don't know if you notice in the picture in this report that the subject is a 3rd floor condo, walk up. So he felt that that was a adjustment that needed to be made, and may have some to do with why we're a little bit different from Mr. Mejia. Also, just of note, not that I think it really had any big difference on value. I do notice in the case of condos that they did in their appraisal, they did a land size adjustment, where typically we don't do a land size adjustment for condos because it seems to skew. You can have the same size lot with a 50 unit parcel, 50 units on it, or you have one with 10, and it's still a condo's a condo. Nobody's buying it because it's allocated an extra 1,000 square feet or anything like that. So I just want to make note of that. Outside of that, Mr. Blanchard's appraisal arrived at $205,000, land value of $20,800, and improvement value of $184,200.
Thank you. Questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I call for a motion to accept David's new of 20,800 land, 254,200 improvements, total 275,000.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is
Next, we'll take up the appeal of Assessor Earl G. Williams versus Mark L. Fritz Hertz in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-72176.
Good morning, sir. You can go ahead and get started.
Good morning, sir. My name's Arthur Laughlin on behalf of the taxpayer. I need to lose this one gracefully. This is an assessor appeal. Y'all's appraisal staff and the assessor's appraisal staff agree with each other and not with me.
Greg?
That being said, we did do an independent appraisal with a value higher than the original assessed value. along with the Louisiana Tax Commission's appraisal. So we are asking for our original value to be upheld to $1,371,100.
Okay, can we hear from the LTC appraiser, Paul?
Paul Bennett with the Louisiana Tax Commission. I personally appraised the property at 6301 General Hague with a undisputed land value of 354,200, an improvement value of 1,028,300 for a total of 1,382,500.
Thank you, Paul. Questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we take the parish assessment at land at 354,200 and improvements at 1,616,900 and a total of 1,371,100.
And we have a motion. Any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted. I'll start for easiest taxpayer rep at the day.
Next, we have the appeal of Damian J. Randolph versus Assessor L.G. Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23-221-76174.
Good morning again. Arthur Laughlin on behalf of the taxpayer. This is a different story. I was notified of the assessor's office's exhibits this morning. Unfortunately, there was a mistake and my client was notified instead of me being notified of the exhibits. I was given those this morning. I believe, working with your staff, I believe we figured out that one of the reasons is the old owner of record is still listed in this appeal. My client had purchased the property last summer, so I think that might have been that. So for that, I'm just to continue, to do the best service to my client, I would pray for a continuance because I was not able to review the assessor's documents until this morning.
Assessor's office.
We can, we'll accept that if they want to have a continuance. Yes.
And
Okay.
would I be able to submit my exhibits so that they can review them? Because that I wasn't, I had a, for y'all might notice, I had a chunk of appeals today. We settled all of them and I withdrew the rest. Except for this one, it was missing from my list. So since they didn't send me anything, I didn't feel like I needed to send them anything because y'all staff agreed with us.
And I have no problem with that as long as we have a sufficient time to look over the documentation before the.
Okay.
Just as long as that follows the guidelines of the tax commission, we don't want to overstep our boundaries if y'all are okay with that. But I know historically you have not been, so it'll be the call of the tax commission.
If the assessor and the taxpayer are acceptable to it, I think we'll be okay with it.
Yes.
So you have a motion that will grant a continuance on this one.
So moved,
But-
Mr. Chair.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Thank you very much. And I'll work with your staff to send the documents over today. Thank you.
Next, we have the appeal of George A. V. versus Assessor L.G. Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23-221-72150.
David? City of New Orleans, you can go ahead.
David Mejia, once again, the property is, Ms. Banks, it's, 2150? That's correct, okay. 848, Wyland, yes, that's right. Okay, yeah, 848 Wyland is the, address. So our original value was, 314,100. Our independent number came in at 332. The Board of Review affirmed our original number. The Tax Commission came in at 276. When I was reviewing it, I was coming up very close to our original number, the 314. I was going to offer a concession of some sort, just as an order of good faith, but it's, I think our number is actually fine, but Just, since I have it marked, I'll state that, I was willing to go to 305 on the value, essentially splitting the difference between, us and the tax commission. And I can put my phone up, so. That would be a breakdown of $120,000 on the land, 185 on the building, for a total of 305 would have been the offer I would have made, I'm making.
Okay, thank you, David. Can we hear from Sandra, the tax commission appraiser?
Yes, Sandra Kennedy. I appraised the property at, 848 Weeblen. And I came up with a value of 276,000, land value of 120, and the improvement value of 156. I did a, market approach that came out at 270, and my income approach came out at 276. And so I went with the 276.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we go with the parish assessor's office for land at 120,000 and improvements at 185,000 with a total of 305,000.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Next, we have the appeal of Glenn J. Harris versus Assessor Errol G. Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-73102.
Ms. Banks, I believe that one was withdrawn. I think they, that should have been in the email yesterday, Mr. Crosby. That's the one that, on Rogers Street. Yeah. Yeah. If you wanna, circle back to that one, yeah, you can check your email, either way, yeah. Okay.
Okay, next we have the appeal of Java Justice LLC versus Assessor L.G. Williams and the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-73107.
David?
Yep, David Mejia once again. This one's eerily strange. Doesn't happen very often, but our value was 249,200, affirmed by the Board of Review and the Tax Commission, and our value was 250. So everybody's within $800 of each other. We're requesting the Board Review value, which is the lower value of the three, 249,200.
Okay, Sandra, LTC appraiser?
Yes, I appraised the property. And I came up with a value of 250,000 with a land value of 105,800 and an improvement value of 144,200.
Okay. Any questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we go with the parish board of review with land at 105,800 with improvements at 143,400 for a total of 249,200.
Okay, we have a motion. Any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Can you step out and call Russell? I don't have access to my email, so we'll have to call, but I'm almost positive I saw that email come through yesterday. Yeah, it came from Russell. It was an email forwarded from Mr. Harris that we forwarded over. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, that's, yeah. The withdrawal would be the same value as the board review value, either way, I guess. It was. Yes, sir. I understand.
Mr. Chairman, if you could make a motion to vacate the ruling, the appeal that you all just heard was actually withdrawn by the taxpayer. So to alleviate the need to write a decision, just simply a motion to vacate the ruling on docket number yada, yada, yada.
I have a motion that we vacate the ruling we just passed on docket number, is it 2322173-107? Any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
And that appeal will be marked as withdrawn on the minutes, Chairman.
Tanisha Malvo on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission. I can confirm that docket number 23-22173-102, Mr. Glenn J. Harris has been withdrawn as of yesterday.
Yes. So.
Next, we have the appeal of Assessor LG Williams and LG Williams versus Casey M. Carradine in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23122173206.
Okay, David?
Yep. This is our appeal, 4514 Ray Street. Our original value was 241,500. We believe that the Board of Review erred and their decision at 140,000, and we appealed it. Subsequent values, tax commission was at 245. Our value was 244 on the independent side. So we are requesting the original value of 241,500, which would be 15,300 on the land, 226,200 for a total of 241,500. We just feel that the Board of Review erred. We're not sure how that decision came about at 140,000.
Okay, thank you. Paul, can we hear from the LTC appraiser?
Paul Bennett with the Louisiana Tax Commission. I personally appraised the property at 4514 Ray Avenue with a undisputed land value of 15,300, an improvement value of 229,700 for a total value of 245,000.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, call for a motion to accept the assessor's value of 15,300 land, 226,200 improvements, total of $241,500.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Next, we have the appeal of the White P. August versus Assessor LG Williams in the Orleans. I'm sorry, that one settled today. That was the one that settled this morning.
Yes.
Okay. We have the appeal of Michael E. Durancelet versus Assessor LG Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221732224.
Okay, David?
The value at the property 1707 Painter Street. We valued this property at 146,600. The Board of Review lowered it to 50,000. Subsequent values are 149 and 155. It looks like the property was damaged at one time. It no longer is. We're requesting, being that all values are subsequent higher, we're requesting our value of 146,600, which is 22,000 on the land, 124,600 on the building, for a total of 146,600.
Okay, LTC appraiser, Patrick?
Patrick Matthew on behalf of Tad Bolton. Mr. Bolton appraised the property at 1707 13 Painter Street. He did a market value analysis and arrived at a value of $149,000. That's with a undisputed land value of $22,000 and an improvement value of $127,000.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the commission? Hear none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we go with the parish assessor's office with the land value of 22,000 and improvements at 124,600 for a total of 146,600.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Next, we have the appeal of Michael E. Durancelet versus Assessor Earl G. Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23-221-73225.
David?
Good morning once again, David Mejia, Orleans Parish Assessor's Office. The property was valued at 114, and it was lowered to 59,500. Subsequent analysis landed at 84,000 and 87,000. We'll be fine with the 59,500. This property still has a few condition issues, so we're just asking to reaffirm the lower number of the Board of Review.
Okay. Patrick, any?
Patrick Matthew, behalf of Tad Bolton. Mr. Bolton appraised the property at 3439 Live Oak Place. This whole property analysis arrived at $84,000. That's with an undisputed land value of 35,300 and an improvement value of 48,700.
Okay, thank you. David, just to confirm, the city is asking to accept the parish board of review value of 35,300 for the land, 24,200 for improvements, for a total of 59,500.
Yes, sir, we'd be fine with that number.
Okay. Any questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I call for a motion to accept the parish board of review number of $35,300 for land, $24,200 for improvements, total of $59,500.
Okay, we have a motion. Any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Next, we have the appeal of Michael E. Durancelet versus Assessor L. G. Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23-221-73226.
Good morning once again, David Mejia, Orleans Parish Assessor's Office. This is a vacant lot. We value this property at 10,400. The tax commission has affirmed 10,400. The board of reviews affirmed it, and our independent analysis actually was a little bit north of that. We're just asking to reaffirm the land value at 10,400, which is seems to be supported by all parties other than the taxpayer.
All right, tax
Patrick Matthew,
commission.
on behalf of Tad Bolton. Mr. Bolton appraised a vacant lot at 2838 St. Ferdinand Street, did a sales comparison approach analysis, and arrived at $10,400 for the subject land.
All right, do we have any questions for either party? Can I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I call for a motion to accept the assessor's value of $10,400 for land, total of $10,400 total.
All right, we have a motion for 10,400 for the land. Do we have any discussion on it? Any opposition? Motion's passed.
Next, we have the appeal of Zachary James Minion versus Assessor L. G. Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23-221-76026.
All right, David, go ahead.
Okay, good morning once again, David Mejia, 2737 Amelia Street. This independent value landed at 412,800 for the quadrennial, upheld at the board of review. Subsequent values of the tax commission is 405. Our independent number is 410. They're pretty tight numbers. The value, it's less than 2% difference. Not that we're fighting over it, but if it's less work for all parties, we're just requesting the value, board of review value to be affirmed, which would be 47,300 on the land, 365,500 on the building, 412,800 total.
Okay, thank you, David. We'll hear from the LTC appraiser, Mike.
Mike Cater, LTC appraiser. I did the single family property located at 2737 Amelia. The land and improvements were both appeal. I did a land grid, come out with a land value of 47,300. I did a sales grid on the whole property and come out with a value of 405,000. Final value was 47,300 for land and 357,700 for improvements.
Thank you, Mike. Questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we go with the parish assessor's office with the land at 47,300 for improvements at 365,500 for a total of 412,800.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Next, we have the appeal of MG Liberty LLC versus Assessor LG Williams and the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23-221-76252.
Ms. Banks, I'm sorry again, 6252 3700 South Liberty? Okay, I apologize. I'm trying to keep up, turning pages. David Mejia, Orleans Parish Assessor's Office once again. This property, it was an interesting one in reviewing this one. So this property, the value analysis landed at 578,500. It was lowered to 430. I'm sorry, it was valued at 430 from the tax commission. Our independent number landed at 494,800. This property was acquired for 420 in April of 22. But subsequent to that, there was a full renovation that was made, a permit, a certificate of occupancy that was issued in April of 2023. It was a pretty significant, it was called a full renovation. And I believe that's why there's such a big discrepancy between the 578. I believe we had valued it as an excellent condition based off of the permit that we had come through. With that being said, I think we do have some movement, but in light of the permit, I believe that the 494,800 is a little bit more appropriate, being that they acquired it for 420 and did a full renovation. I just don't think the 430 would be a correct number based off of the renovation that took place subsequent to that sale.
Okay, thank you, David. We'll hear from the LTC appraiser, Josh.
Yes, again, Joshua Laverne, once again, LTC appraiser. I inspected and appraised the property at 3700 South Liberty, utilizing both market and income approaches. The approaches produced values of 430,000 for market and 444,000 for the income approach, with 122,500 for the underlying land value. And most weight was given to the market approach at 430,000. It was not conveyed to me that the property had pulled permits for renovation, so I didn't have that information available to me.
Okay, thank you, Josh.
Welcome.
Questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I call for a motion to accept the assessor's value of 122,500 on land, 375,900 improvements, total of $498,400.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Next, we have the appeal of Diane E. Baker versus Assessor LG Williams and the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23-221-77111.
Good morning once again. 8419 Ferret. This is a similar case to some of the other ones. The value was 237,900 affirmed by the Board of Review. All subsequent values are higher. The tax commission is at 274,500. Our independent number was at 296. I actually think this property is probably a little undervalued. We advise the taxpayer they may want to consider a withdrawal. With that being said, we're just asking the Board of Review number be affirmed. The 237,900, 67,500 on the land, 170,400 on the building for 237,900 total.
Okay, thank you, David. We'll hear from Mark, the LTC appraiser.
Mark Gillespie with the Tax Commission. I appraised the property at 8419 Ferret and determined the overall market value to be 275,000.
Okay. Any questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to accept the Orleans Parish assessment of 67,500 for the land, 170,400 for the improvement, for a total of $237,900.
Do I have a motion? Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Lastly, we have the appeal of Anna P. Cardone versus Assessor LG Williams and the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23-221-77085.
David? Excuse me, I believe that was withdrawn as well. I got a note from Ms. Malvo on that one.
I'm sorry, that one is withdrawn.
All right, thank you, David, on that. Good job today. And next time when we have more than 20, Russell has to be here. Is there any other business to come before the commission today? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chair, I call for motion to adjourn.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, we are adjourned at 10:50 a.m.